Did I log in with Facebook? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. The short answer, only if it's the only option. Here's the question. I noticed recently that a number of websites allow you to log in using another web service instead of directly from that web page. For example, my son couldn't remember his password at PhoneZoo, but it had an option to log in from his Facebook page. He pressed the button, logged into Facebook, and he was also logged into PhoneZoo. Can you explain this a little bit about what's going on here and whether this means there is an increased security risk? If someone gets in his Facebook account, I would assume they could also get into his PhoneZoo account or any other website providing his access. Is this a trend, and is there any way to avoid it? Like I said when I started, I rarely don't get this specific, but if you are presented this option of logging in with Facebook or Google or any of a number of other identity providers other than the service to which you're trying to access, don't do it. Just don't. I'll explain why in a minute. Let me show you exactly what this looks like first. So over here, I've brought up Feedly, a service that I happen to use, but I'm using it as an example because I know it actually offers these as options. I'm not logged in. So if I go to log into Feedly, it gives me the option to sign in with Google, with email, with Apple, or with Enterprise SSO, whatever that is, single sign-on. If you look at other ways to sign in, sure enough, there's Facebook as well, right? We could sign in with Facebook. If I were to do that, if I click on sign in with Facebook, you'll be given the option then to sign in first to Facebook, at which point it will then ask you if you want to allow this site, Feedly in my case, to connect to Facebook. Once that's done, that's how you sign in to Feedly. That's how you sign into whatever service it is you're using. Instead of having a separate username and password, you have your Facebook account. And that's the only thing you need to use. When you go back to Feedly, when you get asked to sign in, if you're not signed in, it'll then pop up a Facebook sign-in page or another confirmation if you're already signed into Facebook. First, I do need to allay some fear. Facebook does not give your password to whatever service you're signing into. So, for example, in your case, in the question we got, PhoneZoo doesn't get the password, the Facebook password. In my case, Feedly does not get the Facebook password. All they get is some kind of, I'll call it a token, that basically says, here's who this person is, and they have authorized or they have successfully signed in to Facebook, so there's a degree of security or certainty that this is in fact who they say they are. Now, they don't get your password, but they may get other information. At minimum, they probably get your user ID. So in the case of Facebook, they'll probably get my email address. Whether or not that email address is actually necessary for the service, they'll at least get that. If you're using a sign-in service that uses something other than an email address, say just a generic user ID, that probably goes over too. It's probably how how this third party identifies you. In my case, Feedly would then identify me with an email address. In the case of PhoneZoo, it probably identifies also with an email address. But the bottom line is that that's usually at least what they get. However, they can ask for more. And it's important to pay very close attention, if you do this, to the kinds of permission that is being requested when this relationship is established. When you sign in using Facebook for the first time, you'll be asked, hey, you've signed in. Now, this service you're signing into wants this and this and this and this. Is that okay? Make sure you understand what those things are. And if it's not okay, don't do that, right? Disallow that. If it is okay, at least understand what's going on. Now, Facebook usually has a lot of information about you, and it's very possible for these services to request other things about you, like your friends list or your other personal information, or in some cases, even the ability to post on your behalf. Again, depending on what you're signing into, maybe that's something you want. I know that's not what I want. So Facebook or whatever sign-in service you're using has the possibility of giving information to these third-party services like PhoneZoo or Feedly. The opposite, however, is actually a little bit more concerning, because by using these third parties like Facebook to sign into services like PhoneZoo or Feedly, Facebook now knows that you use PhoneZoo. They now know that I use Feedly. They now know all of the different services that I have used Facebook as my sign-in for. Again, that's not great. Facebook is one of those services where we actually do have some concerns about privacy and data harvesting and that kind of stuff. This gives Facebook more information about exactly what it is you do online. I know that's something that I don't like. However, it's actually not the biggest reason. The biggest reason is very simple. You know how we recommend and insist, actually, that you always use a different password for every account? Well, here you're using the same account to log into all of these other places. What that means is, as the questioner pointed out, if someone manages to hack or get access to your Facebook account, now they have instant access to all of these other services because you used Facebook to sign in to all of these other services. Now, there is a link at Facebook, and I'll include that in the article, the companion article for this video, that will allow you to determine which services you're actually doing this with. In other words, you'll see the list that Facebook has of, I've signed into PhoneZoo, I've signed into Feedly, I've signed into this, I've signed into that using Facebook. And you can decide if you want to continue to do that, or you can remove those items from that list. But in a way, it's kind of too late, right? Facebook already knows that you're using all of these services. And that's also exactly where a hacker might go to say, okay, great, I've compromised this Facebook account. Now let's go see what other services this person has kindly given me access to because they use Facebook to log into all these other places. Separate accounts are more secure. A little bit more of a pain. I'll address that in a minute, but they are more secure. Now, in the case of Feedly, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, or go back actually. And you can see here, signing in with email is in fact an option for Feedly. If you have that option, always use a sign in with email approach. That will require that you set up your own separate account with an email address and a password for that specific service. That way, that service's security is not tied in any way to the security you have in place at Facebook. And also, you're not leaking data back and forth, or at least you're not leaking any additional data back and forth by establishing a relationship, a sign-in relationship yourself. Now, I've talked about Facebook specifically, but as you can see from this list, there are a lot of other providers. Google and Apple and Facebook and Twitter and even Windows sign-in apparently is another way to do it. This is an Evernote icon. The bottom line here is that whenever you have the opportunity to sign in with something other than the service you're trying to sign into, don't. Always use your own account dedicated to that service. It is significantly more secure and it is significantly more private. For updates, for comments, for links related to this topic and more, visit askleo.com/5481. I'm Leo Notenboom and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.